The first reading is taken from Genesis, chapter 25, verses 19 to 34. This is the account of Abraham's son, Isaac. Abraham became the father of Isaac, and Isaac was 40 years old when he married Rebekah, daughter of Bethuel the Aramean and Paddan Aram, and sister of Laban the Aramean. Isaac prayed to the Lord on behalf of his wife because she was barren. The Lord answered his prayer, and his wife Rebekah became pregnant. The babies jostled each other within her, and she said, "Why is this happening to me?" So she went to inquire of the Lord. The Lord said to her, "Two nations are in your womb, and two peoples from within you will be separated. One people will be stronger than the other, and the older will serve the younger." When the time came for her to give birth, there were twin boys in her womb. The first to come out was red, and his whole body was like a hairy garment, so they named him Esau. After this, his brother came out with his hand grasping Esau's heel, so he was named Jacob. Isaac was 60 years old when Rebekah gave birth to them. The boys grew up, and Esau became a skillful hunter, a man of the open country, while Jacob was a quiet man, staying among the tents. Isaac, who had a taste for wild game, loved Esau, but Rebekah loved Jacob. Once when Jacob was cooking some stew, Esau came in from the open country, famished. He said to Jacob, "Quick, let me have some of that red stew. I'm famished." This is why he was also called Edom. Jacob replied, "First sell me your birthright." "Look, I'm about to die," Esau said. "What good is the birthright to me?" But Jacob said, "Swear to me first." So he swore an oath to him, selling his birthright to Jacob. Then Jacob gave Esau some bread and some lentil stew. He ate and drank, and then got up and left. So Esau despised his birthright. The second reading is taken from Matthew 13, 1 to 23. That same day, Jesus went out of the house and sat by the lake. Such large crowds gathered around him that he got into a boat and sat in it, while all the people stood on the shore. Then he told them many things in parables, saying, "A farmer went out to sow his seed. As he was scattering the seed, some fell along the path, and the birds came and ate it. Some fell on rocky places, where it did not have much soil. It sprang up quickly because the soil was shallow, but when the sun came up, the plants were scorched, and they withered, because they had no root. Other seed fell among thorns, which grew up and choked the plants. Still other seed fell on good soil, where it produced a crop, 100, 60, or 30 times what was sown. He who has ears, let him hear." The disciples came to him and asked, "Why do you speak to the people in parables?" He replied, "The knowledge of the secrets of the kingdom of heaven has been given to you, but not to them. Whoever has will be given more, and he will have an abundance. Whoever does not have, even when he has, even what he has will be taken from him. This is why I speak in parables. Though seeing, they do not see. Though hearing, they do not hear or understand. In them is fulfilled the prophecy of Isaiah. You will be ever hearing, but never understanding. You will be ever seeing, but never perceiving. For this people's heart has become calloused. They hardly hear with their ears, and they have closed their eyes. Otherwise they might see with their eyes, hear with their ears, understand with their hearts, and turn, and I would heal them. But blessed are your eyes because you see, and your ears because you hear. For I tell you the truth, many prophets and righteous men longed to see what you see, but did not see it, and to hear what you hear, but did not hear it. Listen then to what the parable of the sower means. When anyone hears the message about the kingdom and does not understand it, the evil one comes and snatches away what was sown in his heart. This is the seed grown along the path. The one who received the seed that fell on rocky places is the man who hears the word and at once receives it with joy. But since he has no root, he lasts only a short time. When trouble or persecution comes, because of the word, he quickly falls away. The one who received the seed that fell among the thorns is the man who hears the word, but the worries of this life and the deceitfulness of wealth choke it, making it unfruitful. But the one who received the seed that fell on good soil is the man who hears the word and understands it. He produces a crop yielding 100, 60, or 30 times what was sown. Thanks be to God.
Thank you for reading so well. Two stories. The parable of the sower doesn't usually have that bit, but I'll start with the twins. I've got twins, or we've got twins. All I can tell you is, I'm glad I wasn't 60 when they arrived. Because having two is difficult. We would get up at 2 o'clock in the morning to feed them, and they never seemed to really want it after a while. So we forgot the 2 o'clock feed and shot out of bed one morning at 6 o'clock because we were convinced they died because we hadn't had to feed them at 2 o'clock. So that was the end of the 2 o'clock feed. But they've grown up, married. One's got 2 children. The other one, children hasn't happened for. And they wanted a sister, so they've got a sister as well, who's married with 2 children. But just to tell you, when they went to university, it was a bit of a tough time because with 2 of them at university is rather difficult. One was in Bristol, the other one was in Cardiff. I ended up having to have a van to bring them home at the end of each term because of all the stuff they kept. But just to tell you how like they are, you picked up Peter in Cardiff, go to get Ian in Cardiff, picked up Peter in Bristol and pick him up in Cardiff. And I'm putting stuff in the van and Peter's talking to somebody. And I said, well, who's that? He said, I don't know, you must know Ian. They are very alike. They are supposed to be mirror image twins. One is right-handed, the other is left-handed. The twins in this story couldn't be more different, could they? Because they are different. And the story tells of jealousy, problems, using bargaining to get your way. Food should be shared, surely. But we're all different. And I felt sorry for the 2 parents in a way, although they are older, because God told Rebecca that they would be different. I guess we're all different in a way. different ideas, but they were, as you heard, bargaining, jealous because they weren't the firstborn, so they bargain and get their way so that he could become the firstborn. And I don't know. My wife's mother used to say, do as you would be done by. Honour each other, known or unknown. And sometimes I think we hear these stories and think, oh gosh. But in this story, God takes a part. They go and speak to God, and he tells them what it's going to be like. I think with our twins, my wife was told she was big for her dates. Come for a scan and bring your husband. And there were two little heads there. So we're all different. We all have different ideas, but I don't think any of us would bargain in the way that this was bargained. Just to give somebody some food, to make it a bargain that the firstborn shouldn't be the firstborn. I've recently done a safeguarding course. It was about 5 or 6 hours going through on the computer, and then having a Zoom thing, and eventually ended up with a certificate. But I feel that what this choice about the twins really says is that we should safeguard, okay, but safeguard each other, look after each other. Don't feel that because somebody doesn't talk to you, that they're snubbing you. Perhaps they just have difficulties, and we sometimes need quite a lot of time to work at people who we know, getting to know them better, and working at and serving others rather than expecting them to do things for you. It's a bit of a conundrum, isn't it, really, that it would be so easy for these two twins to have looked after themselves, each other, rather than having such different ideas. And then we come to the parable of the sower. When we usually have the parable of the sower, we have the first part, miss out the bit in the middle, and find out what the parable of the sower means. But this part in the middle, when Jesus is telling, disciples want to know why he speaks in parables. Why does he tell them stories but not explain what they're about? And he says, though seeing they do not see, though hearing they do not hear or understand. In them is fulfilled the prophecy of Isaiah. You will be ever hearing but never understanding. You will be ever seeing but never perceiving. He says, for the people's heart has become calloused. They hardly hear with their ears, and they have closed their eyes. Otherwise they might see with their eyes, hear with their ears, understand with their hearts, and turn, and I would heal them. parable of the sower apart just for the moment, I felt that this part here was a bit like talking to people about your faith and Christianity and all the things that matter to you, trying to tell a friend what it means, and trying to live your life so you show what it means and consider others and work for others and serve others as Jesus wants us to do. But I can think of people who hear that story but actually don't do anything about it. And I wouldn't say that they close their eyes and ears, but they see no reason for following Christianity. They might well follow something else. They might have all the knowledge they need to follow something that they follow. But when they come to follow something that matters, they don't really want to do that. And so this sort of spoke to me, this bit about not seeing and not understanding, because I can think of people that I have talked to about Christianity who have just closed their eyes. And it means, okay, I've tried. I try to consider and work for other people and do things. We all do other things, I know. But so this meant a lot to me, this part of not understanding. And because we've read it before, we know what happens when, Jesus explains, when anyone hears the message about the kingdom and does not understand it, the evil one comes and snatches away what was sown in his heart. This is a seed that is sown along the path. And so he goes on about where it falls, it lasts longer or falls away or whatever. And then what actually follows on good seed, which is sort of like you and I and everybody else in Christianity, works at that and making it, but the one who hears the word and understands it produces a crop yielding 160 or 30 times what was sown. What I was going to tell children was a story going back to when we first came to live in Red Hill. The twins were 5, and our daughter was 6 months old when we moved to Red Hill. And we had been living in Swanley and going to the Hextable Methodist Church, which is where I had done my training as a local preacher, where people really helped and showed the way. A chap called Graham, who was a local preacher, helped me and sort of became my tutor in a way. His wife, Pat, was also a local preacher. She had a name for going, to a church, but she'd come in 2 minutes before the service. And the stewards were champing at the bit because, did they have to take the service? But no, Pat came and took the service. And so when we moved to Red Hill, it seemed like quite a wrench especially with regard to the church. And I went into another church, and the Bible was open at seek you first the kingdom of God and his righteousness. And although I felt a bit bereft at the time, our name had been passed to the Methodist church in Red Hill, so we went there. But at the end of our road, where we live, there is it's called Holy Trinity. It's a church as I grew up in, which is, a Christian church, but that's where I saw the Bible open. And so occasionally we don't go to this other church because just like we know a lot of people who come to Red Hill Methodist Church, we also know quite a few people who go to this church at the end of our road because a lot of people in our road go to that church. So wherever we are, we follow Christ wherever we go. And that was really what came about. And boys being twins who are alike, there were 2 classes in the school they were going to, and they asked if one could be in one class and one could be in the other, because otherwise, if they were in the same class, nobody knew who was who. And I know twins try it on, but they really didn't with regard to school, because that meant something to them, that they were in different classes. So one class knew Peter, the other class knew Ian. And that helped us no end following that. And so I became a local preacher because we had been married in Forest Hill Methodist Church. And that was where we went to church each week, because where we first lived, it was the nearest church. And one time the minister there took me aside and said, come in and see me, which I did the following day. And he said, do you know, the Methodist Church is a Christian church. It's no different, he said. But the thing is that you'll only get communion once a month instead of every week. So there we are. And in that Forest Hill Methodist Church, a young local preacher came one day, and something said to me, you could do that. And it took a move, a different church, for me to finally accept. It didn't help that by then we had 2 young boys, but however, I got there in the end. So when we think about the parable of the sower and the ones who hear the word and are fruitful, I can quite understand that. But all I can understand is that when God calls you, in the end, you have to give up, because you find all sorts of things that you could do instead. And when it comes to parables, well, the parables that follow the parable of the sower are about the weeds, the mustard seed and the yeast, hidden treasure and the pearl, the parable of the net. And then Jesus went home and they didn't like him. And that's sort of all that happens in that chapter 13 of Matthew. So wherever we are, whatever we're doing, we are obviously need to follow God's plan that he has for us. We don't need to be great scholars, but if we listen and act to God's plan, we will be fruitful. It doesn't really matter how fruitful, as long as we follow and trust through God's great grace. And it's only his grace that enables us to follow him and to follow Jesus, as we have sung earlier this morning. So wherever he calls you, whatever he wants you to do, you might not want to do it at the time. You might put everything in the way, but in the end, if God calls you, you have to follow. Amen.